Alright, hello boys and girls, moms and dads, welcome to Here's Homeschool Academy. This is 5th grade science and technology class. We are going to be doing week number 28 of our curriculum today, and we're going to be talking about interaction of living organisms. Alright, so we know that there are going to be different living organisms on the earth, and how do those organisms interact with each other? That's going to be the kernel of today's conversation. Alright, so living organisms, from the previous discussion, we know that there are two major categories of living organisms, and those are going to be plants and animals. Correct, plants and animals. Now in this lesson we will categorize living organisms based on interactions as follows, right? So we are going to be talking about producers and then consumers, right? From that perspective, which we started talking about a few weeks ago, if you remember. So what are producers? These are going to be predominantly plants which require only sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make their own food. And they make their food through a process called photosynthesis. So this word keeps on jumping at you, don't forget it. It's the process through which plants make food from the sun. Okay, that's what photosynthesis is all about. And examples of producers are going to be algae and bacteria for simple cell plants, and of course things like grass and trees. They are going to be part of this as well in this category. But then there are other living organisms called consumers, and these are predominantly animals which depend directly or indirectly on producers for food. So there are going to be three major categories of consumers. We categorize consumers based on amphibians and birds and fish a few weeks ago. But today we're going to be talking about consumers from the standpoint of interaction with each other and interactions with other producers in their environment. So there are three major categories of consumers. There are what we call herbivores. Okay, somebody say that with me, herbivores. And then there's something called carnivores. Can you say that with me, carnivores? Alright, so what are herbivores? Herbivores are animals that feed exclusively on plants. So these are going to be things like your cow or your sheep or your goats or your horse. So those are herbivores. But then on the other hand, there are other types of animals that are carnivores. So these feed on other animals. And examples are going to be your lion or your cat or your dog or your tiger, all those wild animals that like to eat other animals. They are called carnivores. But then there's a third group which are going to be omnivores, and these feed on both plants and animals. And examples are going to be, of course, humans and pigs. Okay, pigs can eat plants and they can eat animals as well. Well, omnivores, that's who we are. Then another category of living organisms is what we call detritivores. Okay, detritivores. Okay, let's say that together. Detritivores. Okay, these are organisms that eat dead plants and animals, and they are going to be things like vultures. Okay, then another category of living organisms will be things like decomposers. Alright, so these are organisms that turn organic waste into inorganic materials, such as soil full of nutrients, and that will make other plants grow. Okay, so inorganic materials are going to be soil that's full of nutrients. So examples of decomposers are going to be things like fungi and bacteria, and they complete the cycle. So producers get energy from the sun, consumers eat producers, detritivores decompose consumers when they die, and eats consumers when they die and produces when they die, and then decomposers eat animals and decompose them into inorganic matter. And then the cycle is going to go back to producers again. So as you can see, the interaction of living organisms with each other and their environment will be very dependent on whether they are producers or consumers. And of course, you're welcome to reference this link over there, Moms and Dad. It's a National Geographic link to further show interactions with living organisms over there. All right, so questions for you. An herbivore will interact with its environment. List 2 examples of a herbivore. Well, that's going to be your sheep or your goat. What about a carnivore? 2 examples. That's going to be your dog or your tiger or your cat. What about human beings? Are we omnivores? The answer, of course, is yes. What do plants need to produce food? Well, they need sun. They need carbon dioxide, which is really the air that they need. And they need their chlorophyll. So if you write those as answers, you are going to be absolutely correct. All right. So that's what we got today, week number 28, boys and girls. Thanks for joining me. Remember, God cares about you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
I'll be your hero's buddy, and as you study with heroes born.